Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Green Bay Packers at the Arizona Cardinals in their divisional round playoff matchup played January 16th, 2016. These two teams had faced off back in Week 16, and now they're facing off once again in the playoffs. The Packers having won in the wild card round, and the Cardinals, they were one of the most winning teams. They were on a 9-game winning streak after beating the Packers before losing in Week 17. But in Week 16, it was 38-8. Cardinals won by 30 points. It would be a far different outcome this time, at least on the scoreboard, and it would take more than just regulation to decide it. But we're going to go over every possession and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. So to start things off, the first possession of the game, the Cardinals got the ball, and they would be held to a 3-and-out by the Packers, as it was all defense on the first two possessions, as the Cardinals would then return that 3-and-out with a 3-and-out on their own, as they forced the Packers to go 3-and-out, as they would punt the ball back to Arizona. After only 2 minutes were off the clock, and each team had already had a possession. So the first two possessions combine for less than 2 minutes. But the second possession of the game for the Cardinals would start off on the Green Bay 42, and they would be faced with a 3rd-and-1 on the 21. Johnson picked up 2 yards and a first down in the red zone at the 19. Then on 4th-and-1, they would go for it, and Johnson picked up another 2 yards to make it 1st-and-goal at the 8. Then a sack by Perry, which would force a fumble, but it was recovered by the Cardinals. And so they would be back at the 13-yard line, but Palmer hit Johnson for 5 yards. And on 3rd-and-goal from the 8, Carson Palmer finds Michael Floyd in the back of the end zone for the touchdown. Chandler Cantanzaro hits the extra point, and it was 7-0 as the Cardinals put the first points on the scoreboard with less than 7 minutes left in the first quarter. So now the Packers would get the ball for the second time in this game, and for the second consecutive possession, they were held to a 3-and-out by Arizona. But after having scored on their last possession, Arizona would go 3-and-out as they did on their first possession, so it's the second time that they went 3-and-out, following the second 3-and-out by the Packers. So now the Packers would get the ball for the third time in this game, now with less than 4 minutes left in the first quarter. They're backed up against their own end zone on their own 5-yard line, but they would get out of the shadow of the end zone when on 2nd-and-7 from the 8, Starks ran for 8 yards to make it a first down at the 16. Then on 3rd-and-4 from the 22, Rodgers scrambled for 19 yards to make it a first down at the Green Bay 41. And then on 3rd-and-5 from the 46, Rodgers goes to Abbrederis. Abracadabra. It's a 14-yard reception for a first down at the Arizona 40 as the first quarter came to a close. So after one, it was 7-0 Cardinals over the Packers. The Packers would open up the second quarter with a first down at the 40. They'd then be faced with a 3rd-and-11 from the 41, and Rodgers would hit Abbrederis, and Abracadabra was a 17-yard reception for a first down at the Arizona 24. Then on 3rd-and-4 from the 18, Rodgers looked like he was intercepted by Peterson, and Peterson ran it back 100 yards for the touchdown, the pick six, but it would be nullified as there were a bunch of penalties on the play. And there was a penalty against Rucker as he had his hands to the face mask on the pass rush that actually put the pressure on Rodgers, which led to the interception. So it would be called back, and it would be a first down for the Packers at the 12. They would not get a touchdown, but on 4th down, Mason Crosby came out to attempt a 28-yard field goal. It was good, and that put the Packers on the board with the score now Arizona 7, Green Bay 3, with about 11.5 minutes left before halftime. So now the Cardinals would be forced to punt after 5 plays on their next possession, and the Packers would take over with about 9 minutes left in the second quarter, and they were on their own 13-yard line to start this possession. They're faced with a 3rd-and-5 from the 18. Rodgers went to Rodgers. He picked up 11 yards in the first down at the 29. Then on 2nd-and-4 from the 35, Rodgers went to Abbrederis. He picked up 6 yards in the 4th down at the 41. And on 3rd and 5 from the 46, Rodgers goes back to Abracadabra. It's an 18-yard reception and first down in Arizona territory at the 36. Then on 3rd and 4 from the 30, Rodgers went to Janis. And Janis picks up 6 and the first down at the 24. And on 2nd and 11 from the 25, Rodgers goes back to Janis. And it's a 13-yard reception and a first down as the game went to the 2-minute warning with the Packers in the red zone with a first down at the 12. But then they lost 4 yards, and that pushed them back to the 16, and that's where they would end up attempting a 34-yard field goal on 4th down as Mason Crosby put it through the uprights, and it was a 1-point game with less than a minute left before halftime with the score Arizona 7, Green Bay 6. So the Cardinals would get the ball before halftime, but with a sack on 2nd down by Mike Daniels, they would end up just bringing the first half to a close after a 3rd and 18, and they did not punt it as time expired. And so at halftime, it was a 1-point game, 7-6. The Cardinals in the lead in a very tightly contested game, low scoring early on, all defense, and it continued to be more defense starting off in the second half. The Packers got the ball first, and after picking up a first down, they were faced with a 1st and 10 on their own 35, and Aaron Rodgers was intercepted by Johnson. So Johnson with the interception. But then, just 3 plays later, on 3rd and 11 from the 48, the Green Bay 48, Carson Palmer drops back, and he was intercepted by Clinton Dix. So 2 interceptions to start off the second half. And now the Packers had the ball on their own 19-yard line. And they picked up a first down with a run by Eddie Lacy on 2nd and 12 for 14 yards. Then on 1st and 10 from the 31, Eddie Lacy breaks it wide open with a 61-yard run. And that brought the ball all the way to the 8-yard line. So it was a first down in the red zone, 1st and goal. And on 3rd and goal from the 8, Aaron Rodgers finds Jeff Janis for the touchdown. Mason Crosby hits the extra point, and with that touchdown, the Packers were in the lead for the first time in this game, up 13-7, with a little over 10 minutes still left in the third. So now the Cardinals would get the ball for the second time in the second half. They would start off with it on their own 16. They would be faced with a 2nd and 6 from the 20, and Carson Palmer hit Larry Fitzgerald for a 32-yard reception to make it a first down at the 48. Then a delay of game pushed them back into their own territory at the 47. Then Carson Palmer went to Fells. He picked up 11 yards, and an unnecessary roughness call against the defense would make it a first down at the 27 as that tacked on some yards. So they're at the Green Bay 27 for the Cardinals. They were then faced with a 2nd and 9 from the 26. Palmer goes to Fitzgerald. He picks up 19, a first down in the red zone at the Green Bay 7. But then a call against Fitzgerald for a blindside block pushes them back to the 20. And they would end up having to settle for a 28-yard field goal rather on 4th and goal from the 10. So they weren't able to get in the end zone, but they got 3 points, and it was a 3-point game with the score Green Bay 13, Arizona 10, with about 5 minutes left in the third. The Cardinals defense would then hold the Packers to a 3-and-out, and they would punt the ball back to the Cardinals as they would take over with less than 3 minutes left in the third on their own 31. They got into Green Bay territory, and they brought the third quarter to a close with a 10-yard pass from Palmer to David Johnson on 2nd and 8 from the 38. They opened up the fourth quarter, and Palmer hit John Brown for an 18-yard reception that made it a 1st and goal on the 10 as the Cardinals were now in the red zone. But then Palmer let one just lay up in the air. It was kind of a duck, and Randall came down with it with an interception in the end zone. So the Cardinals had a chance to tie the game with a field goal or take back the lead with a touchdown. Instead, it's an interception. And now the Packers would take over on their own 20, but after 7 plays on the possession, they would end up punting the ball back to the Cardinals. So now the Cardinals would take over with 11 minutes left in regulation, the ball on their own 20, down by 3. And on 2nd and 10 from the 20, Palmer hits John Brown. He picks up 21 yards and a first down at the 41. Then on 2nd and 13 from the 38, Palmer goes to Fitzgerald. He picks up 13 yards and the first down in Green Bay territory at the 49. And on 3rd and 4 from the 43, Palmer goes to Floyd. He picks up 9, a first down at the 34. And on 3rd and 4 from the 28, Palmer went to John Brown. He picked up 9 yards and a first down in the red zone at the 19. And then on 3rd and 10 from the 19, Carson Palmer gets it to David Johnson, and Johnson picks up 10 and a first down, 1st and goal at the 9. And then Carson Palmer throws it. It goes off of Randall's arm. Randall, who had intercepted him in the end zone on the last possession, but here it bounces off his arm, and Michael Floyd makes the heads-up play and catches it for a 9-yard touchdown. And with the extra point by Chandler Cantanzaro, the Cardinals were now back in the lead, up by 4 with the score Arizona 17, Green Bay 13, with less than 4 minutes left to play in regulation. So now the Packers would get the ball on their own 20 after the touchback on the kickoff, and they would end up with a 3rd and 5 situation from their own 25 on the 3rd play of the possession, but an incomplete pass would bring up 4th down, and with just about 2.5 minutes left in this game, they would go for it, down by 4, and an incomplete pass as it bounced off the ground in front of Jones. And so now they turn the ball over on downs. And so the Cardinals would now take over already in field goal range with the ball on the Green Bay 24 to start the possession. They would bring the clock down to the 2-minute warning, but they would not pick up a first down. And so on 4th and 4 from the 18, Chandler Cantanzaro came out to attempt a 36-yard field goal on the other side of the 2-minute warning. It was up, it was good, and it was now a 7-point lead for the Cardinals with the score Arizona 20, Green Bay 13 as they extended their lead. So now the Packers would get the ball one last time in regulation with less than 2 minutes left, down by a touchdown, and they would start off on their own 14. But on 2nd and 10 from the 14, Rodgers was sacked by Dwight Freeney, and that would make it 3rd and 20 on the 4, and an incomplete pass would bring up 4th and 20 from the 4-yard line with less than a minute left in this game. And on 4th and 20 from the 4, Rodgers scrambles around, extends the play, and he finds Janis for a 60-yard reception. And so now it's a first down at the Arizona 36, and they tried to act as if they were going to spike the ball, but instead Rodgers decides to hike the ball, trying to catch the Cardinals off guard in some way, but instead it ends up being a penalty against the Packers because they were not set. So Rodgers, the tight end, wasn't set, and so a 5-yard penalty pushes the Packers back to the 41. So it's 1st and 15, an incomplete pass would make it 2nd and 15, but there was only 5 seconds left on the clock. Neither team had any timeouts at this point, as the Cardinals had taken their last 2 timeouts in the last 2 plays. And so now 2nd and 15 from the 41, the very last play of the game, regardless of what happens, at least of regulation. And Aaron Rodgers scrambling around, somehow throws up a prayer, another Hail Mary miracle, when Jeff Janis comes down with it, a 41-yard touchdown. Mason Crosby adds the extra point, and this game is going to overtime, tied at 20 apiece. Then, on the coin flip, the first time the official flips the coin, it doesn't flip. It just goes up and down. And so they had to flip it a first time, which was actually the second time, but it didn't flip the first time. So they went for another flip attempt. This time it does flip. And so now the Cardinals would get the ball first in overtime. And on the very first play of overtime, 1st and 10 from the 20 after the touchback on the kickoff, Carson Palmer drops back. He's under heavy pressure. He spins literally a 360. He's trying to evade the pass rush. He actually bumped into his own lineman, but somehow, some way, he throws it across the body, across the field. He finds a wide open Larry Fitzgerald just a little bit past the line of scrimmage, and Fitzgerald makes move after move, picking up block after block, and he's going. It looks like he might make it, but he gets it all the way 75 yards to the 5-yard line for the first down on the doorstep, as it's now 1st and goal on the Green Bay 5 for the Cardinals. An incomplete pass as they try to get it through the air to Fitzgerald, and so now it's 2nd and goal, and Carson Palmer on somewhat of a read option, a college type of play. He has Fitzgerald actually in the backfield, and he flips it to Fitzgerald, and Fitzgerald takes it in the end zone for a 5-yard touchdown. Technically, they called it a pass, but it was kind of more like a run, And it is either way a win for the Cardinals. Carson Palmer's first win in the playoffs as a quarterback. He had the fourth most wins of any quarterback without a playoff victory. He had 159 wins without a playoff victory. And Larry Fitzgerald comes up big time in this game, comes up super clutch in overtime to give the Cardinals the win to send them to the NFC Championship game. So the Cardinals are headed back to the NFC Championship, and they're one win away from making it back to the Super Bowl. So a crazy, crazy finish, a crazy fourth quarter. It was a roller coaster ride of emotions. Carson Palmer throwing that interception early on in the fourth quarter, but he finds redemption as the guy who picked off the pass, Randall, the ball bounces off his arm and into Floyd's hands for the touchdown to give the Cardinals the lead with less than 4 minutes. Then after the defense forces the turnover on downs, a field goal makes it a touchdown lead, and then Rodgers works his magic and forces overtime with another miracle, a Hail Mary, coming up huge first on that 4th and 20, and then coming up on the final play of regulation with that touchdown, the 41-yard touchdown to Janis, as Janis ended up actually getting he had 101 yards on that drive for Janis, because he had a 60-yard reception, and then he had the 41-yard reception because they had the penalty push him back 5 yards. So he actually gained more yards, Janis did, than they had yards to go, because it was a 96-yard drive from the 4, but he picks up 101 yards on that possession. And then, after the craziness on the coin flip, the Cardinals didn't waste any time as Larry Fitzgerald brought the game home. He comes up super clutch with that huge play as Carson Palmer avoiding the pass rush as the Packers had him under pressure all game long. It was almost the reverse of last time. The first time these two teams faced just a couple weeks ago, back in Week 16, 9 sacks for the Cardinals. This time around, only 1 sack, as the Packers' offensive line did a much better job protecting Rodgers, and it was one heck of a low-scoring defensive battle through the first 3 quarters, but then in the final 4 minutes of the game, you end up seeing the Cardinals put up 10 points, the Packers put up a touchdown, so 17 points right there in the final 4 minutes, and then the touchdown just over a minute into overtime. What a wild, wild finish out west. And, I mean, it was one for the ages for sure. No shame in losing this game for the Packers. They put up quite the effort, as they didn't get blown out like they did last time. They forced overtime this time around, but the Cardinals come away with the W. A crazy, crazy game. Let's look at the numbers real quick in this game. Carson Palmer, 25 for 41, 349 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. David Johnson, 15 carries for 35 rushing yards. He had 6 receptions for 43 receiving yards, giving him 78 total yards in the game. And Larry Fitzgerald, 8 receptions, 176 yards, and the touchdown, the game winner in overtime, as they won this game 26-20. John Brown, 5 receptions for 82 yards. And Floyd had 3 catches for 26 yards and 2 touchdowns for Floyd. And for the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, 24 for 44, 261 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also had 21 rushing yards in this game off of 2 carries. Eddie Lacy, 12 carries for 89 yards in this game. He also had 2 yards off of 2 receptions, giving him 91 total yards. And Jeff Janis, 7 receptions, 145 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the one to tie the game up to force overtime. And Aberdarius, 4 receptions for 55 yards. And Richard Rodgers, 5 receptions for 45 yards. We look at the kickers in this game. Chandler Cantanzaro was perfect, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 2 for 2 on the extra points. Mason Crosby perfect as well, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 2 for 2 on the extra points. We look at the defense for Arizona. Like I said, last time around 9 sacks, this time just the 1, Dwight Freeney, and then the interception by Johnson. And for the Packers, Clinton Dix and Randall each had interceptions. Nick Perry had a sack, Mike Daniels had a sack, and Julius Peppers had a sack. Perry also had a forced fumble. We look at the team stats, 20 first downs for the Cardinals, 18 first downs for the Packers. On 3rd down, The Packers 7 of 15, 46% conversion rate. The Cardinals 5 of 13, 38% conversion rate on third down. And on fourth down, the Cardinals went for it once. They did convert 100% on fourth down. The Packers went for it twice on fourth down, converted once, and turned the ball over on downs once for 50% on fourth down. Total net yards, 386 for the Packers, 368 for the Cardinals. On the ground, the Packers netted 135. The Cardinals netted just 40 yards on the ground, as the Packers netted 6.1 yards per rushing play, only 2.1 yards per rushing play for the Cardinals. So 4 more yards on average per rushing play for the Packers in this game. But Carson Palmer, he redeems his 2 interceptions to come up with those touchdowns. The 2 touchdowns in regulation, and then the 3rd touchdown in overtime to win it. But the net passing yards, 328 for the Cardinals. Palmer was sacked 3 times in the game for a total loss of 21 yards. 251 netted through the air for the Packers. Rodgers sacked once for a loss of 10 yards. Penalties in this game, not too many, but 8 against the Packers for 55 yards, 3 against the Cardinals for 26 yards. The 1 fumble in this game was by the Cardinals, but they did recover their own fumble. And in the red zone, the Cardinals 3 for 6, 50%, as they kept getting into the red zone. And the Packers just 1 for 3, just 33% in the red zone. The time of possession, 30 minutes, 51 seconds for the Cardinals, 30 minutes, 14 seconds for the Packers. Of course, the Packers had the ball more in regulation, just barely, as the Cardinals were the only team to have the ball in overtime, as they had it for like a minute and 5 seconds in overtime. So what a crazy, crazy finish. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions about this wild game out west between the Packers and the Cardinals. They'll be moving on, and they'll be watching to see who wins between Seattle and Carolina tomorrow in the early game, to see whether they'll be hosting the Seahawks for the 3rd game of those 2 teams in this year, or if they're going to be going to Carolina to face the Panthers. But either way, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and having a great weekend and enjoying all the sports.